What's everybody doing? Is everybody having a great night? I'm sure that all of our really good fans already know, and a lot of you have already been here because you were in the stream chat room for me, but this is not only the most important day for the listening party and the viewing party and the potential surprise party, but it's also my birthday! Hallelujah!
Happy birthday, Jeremy!
Happy birthday!
Yay!
Happy birthday!
Yeah, just don't sing that song because we don't want to get sued.
I think you're allowed a certain length of it.
Yeah, but actually, I think I read a thing that they actually they overturned that copyright, so it's not a thing anymore. I think I read that. But anyways, so welcome. I think we usually want to give it a second because I know that we got people streaming in. I know that we sent out an email today, so we're going to get a lot of new people who maybe haven't come to a stream before. So we're going to let them sort of join in. Thank you everybody for all the birthday wishes. I see you all in the chat room. Yes, I am 39 years young. One more year till I'm over the hill, so I get to pretend that I'm young for a whole another 12 months. It's very exciting. So, let's see. It's an hour early, as everybody knows, because today is our Wrath of the Cosmos listening/viewing party. The Shattered Timelines one went so well that we decided to do it again. Happy Damage Day. Thank you, Cytosine. Yes. And so let me welcome you all here to Sentinels Live an hour early. Thank you for joining us around, I guess, the digital phonograph. Not so much the digital tabletop this time, while we listen to the music and view the environments from the upcoming Wrath of the Cosmos expansion pack. As you all know, we are the developers, and tonight you've actually got the whole team. You've got me, that's Jeremy. You got Jean-Marc. Say hi, Jean-Marc.
Hey.
He's our music guy. You've got Jennifer. Say hi, Jennifer.
Hello.
Who does
Hello.
not only our environments, but also a lot of our deck programming as well, and a lot of our Unity UI stuff, as well as mock-ups and all kinds of graphical things. John is going to be on for the stream, but you probably all notice he's already in the chat, so he'll be there chatting away with you guys and answering any questions you might have. And so hopefully tonight, aside from just hearing and listening, you'll get some additional deeper insight into the process, as well as see lots and hear lots of stuff before anyone else. Because that's what we're here to do. So for those of you who are new to the game, Sentinels is a cooperative, team-based, comic book themed hero card game where you play as a team of heroes trying to defeat a villain in a dynamic environment. And we've been slowly but surely releasing all the expansions that are available on the tabletop digitally. We are now up to the second to last expansion that's part of Season 1, and that is Wrath of the Cosmos. It includes 2 heroes, 4 villains, and 2 environments, all of which you're going to get to see a little bit of this evening. And so, without further ado, this is actually, I'll just mention this before I hand it over to Jean-Marc. We're expecting this to be about an hour, and then we're going to get into the usual stream right at 7 Eastern, which is going to be us playing some of these Wrath of the Cosmos decks. Probably some stuff you haven't seen yet, because we haven't shown it on the stream yet. So yeah, take it away, Jean-Marc. Tell us what we're going to be hearing tonight.
Okay, so for Sentinels of the Multiverse, I have done the main theme that plays sort of throughout the main menus and stuff like that.
Which you guys are hearing right now.
Yeah, and then in every game you play in a specific environment, and so each environment has its own musical theme, and we'll hear 2 of those later tonight. And in each game, if the heroes win, you hear a hero victory song that's always the same because they're a team. But if you lose, you hear a theme specific to the villain that you were fighting against. And so I try and adapt each villain character theme to the particular characteristics of the villain or the situation in which you battle them or anything like that. And I'd like to start off by playing a couple from some of the new villains from Wrath of the Cosmos. The first one is Cargo Warfang. Cargo Warfang is a Thorathian that is another race from another planet, and she owns her own Colosseum, and she can teleport it from place to place throughout the multiverse. And everywhere she goes, she forces the local inhabitants to fight in it as gladiators, vying for the favor of the crowd. Participants are trapped until Kargra herself lets them go, if she allows it. And so whenever you are playing in the Bloodsworn Colosseum, and you lose to Kargra Warfang and the Gladiators, you will hear the music we're going to play now.
Yes. So that was Kargra Warfang. I apologize, everybody, for the blasting out of the speakers. I was trying to make sure that all the levels were proper. But yeah, the thing is that, a couple of mics with voice is always going to be quieter than fully mixed music. So I'll make sure to make sure the levels are not quite so crazy as we move on to the future songs. So I apologize. So Jean-Marc, tell us a little bit about Kargra Warfang.
And so for any of you that are listening just through laptop speakers or whatever, you'll probably get more out of the experience if you listen through some good speakers or good headphones, and we'll try not to play so loud the next time.
Yeah, I can definitely be sure to do that because I have the ability to change the level like on the fly. In fact, you guys should have noticed that it dropped out a little bit lower, a little bit into that one because we saw that people were saying, "Oh wow, that was loud." So
yeah. So that's Kargra Warfang's theme. So it takes place in a Colosseum, and obviously when they win, it's supposed to sound really triumphant. That was specifically what Christopher, the game's designer, was saying. Like, it should sound like, fanfare music, basically. And so I originally made it quite triumphant, and with the idea that it was the theme that would play when the Gladiators won. And so, they were really celebrating in their own victory, so to speak. But then when I saw the image that would actually be shown when you lose, it was Kargra Warfang with their thumb down. And so rather than focusing on the Gladiators' victory, it was actually focusing on the failure of the heroes. And so I took the same piece, but I kind of brought it more, made it a bit more ominous and kind of uncertain, and kind of kept that sort of triumphant energy, but yeah, tried to make it a little bit more sinister and more like this was bad for you, but kind of good for us kind of thing. But then the original version that I had, I found that if I sped it up and added some strings and stuff, it actually went quite well with the Wrath of the Cosmos trailer, which we have already seen. And so if you recognize the theme as being familiar, that might be where you remember hearing it from.
Indeed. All right, so the next villain we're going to listen to tonight is Deadline. Tell us a little bit about Deadline.
Okay, so Deadline is the last of his particular kind of Endling, which is another alien race. And his original people were entirely wiped out. So now he has been seeing the beginning of another cataclysmic extinction event. And the cause of this event is the existence of the planet Earth itself. So although he is completely reluctant to do so, he has been convinced that the only way to stop further destruction and to save the rest of the multiverse is to remove Earth completely from the multiverse. And so we will play his theme now.
And we're back. So yes, as a lot of people have been noticing, this one was very minimalist, and it was almost like a dirge. And actually, one thing we forgot to mention up front is while we're listening to these, you're going to be seeing the artwork as we get it from Adam. So once you get it into the game, sometimes it's been resized, sometimes it's been cropped slightly differently, but we're actually showing you the plates as they come directly from Adam. So you can see every inch of the artwork here. And again, for those of you who are showing up late or are like, oh, I missed a song, whatever, this will be up on YouTube when we're done with it. All right, so tell us a little bit about your process for Deadline, Jean-Marc.
Yeah, so he was very different in that even though he's a villain and he won, it's not a victory at all. For him, it's sadness and remorse, and he doesn't want to do this anymore than but it had to be done. And so also, if he wins, in a lot of cases, it means that an entire environment has just been destroyed. So I wanted it to have a certain sense of finality and devastation to it, which is a part of why I kept it so minimal. Because, I think it's a musician tendency to try and fill everything in as much as possible, but I tried not to with that one.
Yeah, and I think it works really, really well. I know that for me personally, I was kind of surprised by it the first time I heard it, but listening to it, especially in headphones sort of like tuned out from the world, it really conveys exactly what you're talking about. Like he's mournful over the fact that he had to remove a world from the multiverse, and that is exactly what it's capturing.
Yeah. So next up we have an environment song, and this is the Thorath capital. Thorath is the home planet of the Thorathians, and this is their capital city. The planet has a general air of sadness and suppression to it, thanks especially to the Thorathian army, originally established by Grand Warlord Voss. But there is a scrappy group of rebels who have been rising up against the army, known as the Freedom Fighters. Though their goals are noble, it does mean that Thorath capital is caught in the middle of a civil war. So, the summary, it is a city with a Thorathian army subdued by freedom fighters in a civil war. And we will listen to that now.
And settle in, folks, because this one is an environment song, so it's a little bit longer. It's just over 7 minutes. So there it is, folks. The Doc Thorath capital. I have to tell you, Jean-Marc, I don't know if he's going to be embarrassed that I say this, was giddy when people started comparing him to John Williams because he admitted to me that that was actually one of his biggest influences while he was doing this, was that he was very excited to capture, not necessarily like ape it, but capture that feeling of like the sort of scrappy rebels versus the Empire kind of a thing. So, all right, take it away.
Yeah, well, exactly that. So the first part is that I was like, oh, well, I feel like the city itself should have a theme, but then the Thorathian army should also have a theme, which is reminiscent of Voss because he was sort of the originator, and then the freedom fighters should have a theme. So I made the three themes and kind of strung them together in a way that, you know, kind of told a bit of a story. And the freedom fighters especially were kind of influenced by Les Miserables, which is an amazing musical. If anyone hasn't seen it, they really, really should. And then I was like, okay, and now the Civil War breaks out and all three themes are mixed together, and I don't know how to do that. So I actually just spent a lot of time listening to exactly that Star Wars, particularly the battle music, and even focused in especially on the ones that mix different themes, you know, Darth Vader's theme and whatever. And like I just listened to that, and then I was like, I took a good chunk of Saturday, but I just kind of sat down and did everything I could as I could, and it's probably one of the most complicated things I ever have done. I did a quicker orchestration on it than I normally would to make sure it got done. But yeah, I think it came out sounding sort of like the reference material. And I deliberately have an ambiguous ending where it sounds kind of triumphant, like this is going to end, this is going to end, this is going to end, and then it kind of ends on sort of a ambiguous note that doesn't cadence the whole thing very cleanly at all. And to get the overall soundscape, every instrument has both an organic one and a synthetic one. So that's sort of how all those different sounds interacted, especially in the beginning.
All right, so since this was our first environment, and I noticed some people actually commenting on the environment artwork, Jennifer, why don't you tell us a little bit about sort of where you sort of how you build the environments? Because as a lot of people know, Adam draws all the environment stuff, but then we sort of take that as inspiration and try and turn it into our own thing. So how do you do that?
Well, I do it. The first thing I do when I build any environment is I look at the card art, and we also do consult with Adam and get his opinion on how things should look too. And then I build it in 3D. So for Doc Thorath Capital, because it's a city, I kind of mapped it out a little bit first, and then put the buildings in the different cameras. And there was a question in the chat about like setting up the background images, knowing that they're going to be obscured by hero cutouts, and that's absolutely something that I think about when I'm setting it up, to try to like leave a little bit of space in the foreground, because we kind of want it to look like the heroes are standing in the environment, and so that is something I think about.
Yeah, and that's actually that leads exactly to why we are doing what we're doing with this listening party, because the environments are almost always obscured by either cards or cutouts or whatever, so you never really get to see them clean. And so we're using this as an opportunity to get you a chance to really just sort of appreciate the environment, because a lot of work goes into it.
Yeah. Yes. So what I usually do is I'll set up the cameras, I'll capture the environment, and then I'll test it out in the game, and then usually have to make adjustments depending on how it looks. But I've gotten pretty good at guessing where things are gonna end up. And one thing that's another thing is some of the one thing I really liked about Doc Thorath Capital is it's this alien world, so a lot of things are pretty unique. So I actually I got to make some custom buildings, like the Rebel headquarters, to make it look like I wanted to make it look exactly like as much like the card as I could in 3D.
Very cool.
And I also noticed there were some comments in the chat about like the spikes in the buildings, and if you look at the card art, I tried to mimic like the spikes that were around some of the buildings and walls and things. So
Cool, indeed. So we'll talk a little bit more about environments because there is one more coming up, and that is the Enclave of the Endlings. So Jen can tell you a little bit more about that when we get to that one. But for now, let's get back to some villains. So who's next on the villain roster, Jean-Marc?
Okay, and I just see some questions in the chat. Maybe ask them during the stream when we have a little bit more time, since we're trying to squeeze this all into an hour. But thank you very much for asking. I'll keep note of them. So next up we have Infinitor. So Hugh and his brother Nigel were stargazing when they saw some purple energy in the sky that crashed to the earth. The crater left a crystal which bestowed them both with new powers. Hugh became Captain Cosmic and used his powers to fight alongside other heroes in the multiverse. However, Nigel awoke to complete madness and was forced to listen to the voices in his head until they turned him into Infinitor, who creates twisted manifestations that terrorize humans. Don't adjust your headphones to the beginning. It gets louder.
All right, so here is Infinitor. All right, are you guys insane yet? Because you listen to that. Little known fact, if you listen to Infinitor's theme enough times in a row, you actually will go insane. So tell us about this, Jean-Marc.
Sure, yeah. So originally, I had it more being like a lot of voices and whispers and things like that. And the music was in the background, almost like it was stuck in his head and he had some vague memory of it. But couldn't quite grasp it. It was always covered by all these sounds. And then I played it for the team, and Jeremy said, I really want to hear the music. Otherwise I'd just skip it if it was in my playlist. Like, he's like, I really want to be able to hear the theme. And I said, was thinking like, well, the theme is a hero theme because he is a good guy. He's just like trapped in all this madness. So it was kind of like, if I brought that out, it would be too positive. And so I was like, well, okay, maybe if I warp it around a little bit. So now I kind of had this idea of alternating between like all the madness and whispers, and then this theme that's like a bad version of what his and Captain Cosmic's theme would be. They would probably share a theme, at least in my mind. And so the music is like a twisted version of that is he and his brother share. So I used a lot of different effects and stuff to make everything sound off. I changed the harmony and just kind of made it so it didn't quite stay in the same key, or it was just kind of all over the place. And layered myself doing a whole bunch of different voices and panning them all over the place and stuff like that. But we do have in the game, one of the confirmed variants is Heroic Infinitor.
Surprise!
Yay, that's the big surprise.
That's one of the big surprises tonight. So Rothy actually says, I can't wait to hear the variant version. Well, you don't have to wait that long, Rothy. Maybe another 30 seconds.
Yeah. So that's one of. I mean, some people here already knew because they kind of saw it in the stream last time. But yes, Heroic Infinitor will be in Wrath of the Cosmos. And so for him, the heroes eventually manage to show Nigel that he doesn't need to be controlled by the voices in his head and his manifestations. So for a short period of time, he manages to gain enough self-control to actually aid the heroes in an attempt to subdue his own manifestations and free his own mind. So this is Heroic Infinitor now.
All right, and we're back. So yes, you've seen two Infinitors. You saw regular Infinitor and Heroic Infinitor. The Tormented Ally, as it is. I don't know that I would call that a spoiler, that Infinitor sort of inside of this weird Oblivion manifestation, but if you want to consider that a spoiler, so be it. Yeah, so as I mentioned, this artwork all comes directly from Adam. So if there's little story nuggets that he's hoping to put out, that's where it's coming from. So tell us a little bit about how you turned Infinitor into a Heroic Infinitor, or vice versa.
Yeah, so like when he was sort of stuck in his own head for his regular theme, he had sort of this hero theme, and so I basically just restored it to what I had originally imagined him and Captain Cosmic to have as a theme. But I still kept a little bit of the warbling effects and things like that on it. So because, I didn't want it to be completely clean like Captain Cosmic's would be. And also, even though he has these outbursts where he finally, kind of recognizes himself and his brother and can fight with the heroes, he still kind of slips back into madness, especially if he gets flipped, and that's a more mechanical thing. And so I had this part at the end where it slows down, as you heard, and John suggested that I put it at the end of the different phrases, and so I went back and did that, and he was right. I think that worked quite well. So.
Indeed. All right, so there's only one villain left for Wrath of the Cosmos, and he is also inextricably linked with Oblivion. So tell us a little bit about Progyny.
Okay, so next up we have Progyny. A spark of creation arced through space and drove into the heart of the earth. When it awoke, Progyny was born. His only purpose was to destroy and prepare the way for his progenitor.
Progenitor.
I've
Hence
never
Progyny.
Yeah. It can assume many forms, is unstoppable, and is out only to destroy. So we are going to play Progyny now.
And be aware, everybody, your speakers just maybe turn it down a little bit. That's all I want to say about that. Here we go. Whew, that final art for Progyny is like, whew.
Yeah.
So yeah, for the metal, I saw that the metalheads out there were digging this as much as I was, and when I first heard this piece of music from Jean-Marc, I was like, oh yeah! I threw the horns. I mean, man, this is right up my alley. Yeah, I think I saw someone comment like, with music like this, I almost don't mind losing, because it is badass, as Linda says. So tell us a little bit about how you came up to this, because Jean-Marc was just confessing to me he's not a metal guy, so it's interesting that he managed to put this together the way that he did.
Well, I mean, when I was asking Christopher for information, sort of what he would have imagined, the one word he said was unstoppable, heavy, intense, like those kinds of things. And I mean, I don't regularly listen to metal music, but those are characteristics that I think are particular to it, and so I used a lot more electric guitars and basses than I would normally use for most things, and decided to bring them kind of front and center, and then I used something called black toms, which are just these really big heavy tom drums, and those were a lot of metal music uses like the double pedal and all that stuff. I decided to forgo that and really focus on these really big toms that would take up a lot of the sonic landscape. And also in my mind, I had a lot of like weird orchestral effects. And so, I kind of searched for horns and brass and clarinets and stuff doing all these weird things, and kind of mix those in there to really bring out sort of the craziness going on alongside it.
Very cool. All right, so that brings us to the second of our two environments, which is known as the Enclave of the Endlings.
Yeah, so the Enclave of the Endlings is the refuge for the Endlings, a race of strange and unusual creatures of all different shapes, sizes, and forms. Each have their own unique sounds and cries as well. Some help, some hinder, but all are unique in this quirky planet.
So I wanted to just jump in because I think earlier you had said that such and such was part of the race of the Endlings, but I'm pretty sure that I read that what makes an Endling is that they are the final one of their race, and the Enclave of the Endlings is a place where all these final members of their race join together. Did I read that wrong, or is that...
I haven't seen the official information on this.
Okay.
So, yeah, what I was saying was my interpretation.
Okay. So yeah, I believe I read that in a document somewhere. I don't know if that's actually officially out yet. So maybe that is me saying something I'm not. Maybe that's me talking out of class. But that is what I remember from reading it. And that's why all the Endlings are so unique and different than every other Endling. So, all right. So there we have it. Again, settle in, folks. The Enclave of the Endling over 7 minutes, and it begins right now.
The Enclave of the Endlings!
So what'd you guys think of the Enclave of the Endlings? I know a lot of people already called out exactly all the things that I knew, which is that I love the Danny Elfman feeling of it and the retro feeling of it. So tell us, Jean-Marc, what's going on with the Enclave of the Endlings?
Yeah, so a lot of people were surprised by this one, and I was kind of too, because I thought it would focus more on the weirdness of the creatures and stuff like that. But when we were talking to Christopher and Adam, they said, oh, well, it should definitely sound as much like 60s cartoons as you can. You know, Johnny Quest, Space Ghost, Herculoids, those kinds of things. And I actually wasn't all that familiar with that music, so I spent time listening to it. some of them I could find the actual soundtrack for, and some of them I just had to listen to like as background to everything else. And a lot of it is really good. I'm definitely going to get more into it now after having done that, because they're really well composed, and in some ways I feel like they put more into the background than they do in some of the more modern stuff. So so I basically listened to a lot of that, and then to get that 60s sound, I didn't even know what to do, right? Because most of the time you want your music to sound as high quality as possible, but this time I actually really wanted to go for an older sound. So I put a tweet out there asking for sound designer help, because sound design isn't really my strength. And Matthew Martinson from Clay Studio, he was the sound designer for Don't Starve and their other games, responded to me and said, I think I can help you out with that. And he definitely came through. He actually had like these different levels of how 60s you could make it. And he got to a certain point where I was like, oh, that's almost too much. Like, it was almost like degrading it so much that it would just sound like noise. So I kind of backed off to a point that I liked. And then when I listened to this old music, it tended to be much more upbeat, very jazzy, and all those things. And so I said, Jeremy, I don't have the instrument set to make something as jazzy as this. And he was gracious in making sure I was supplied with it. And then I just sort of like came up with all these different themes, as if it were the soundtrack to a TV show. And I just couldn't stop. I was having so much fun with all of them that, I was just like, okay, like I made them all, and then I strung them together. And then I was just like, yeah, this was a ton of fun. I had a blast making it. I learned a lot in doing it too. So yeah, it was, and I actually improvised a lot of the parts. Like I just would have the guitar and drums going, like, and then I would just, leave it going like that for 10 minutes, and then with my voice just go like, and like just stuff like that. And then what I did was I replaced what I was improvising with all these sounds with the actual instruments, and tried to mimic what I was doing with my voice with those instruments as much as possible. So that's why there's kind of like these odd moments in it. But I really liked the way that turned out.
So we are rapidly running out of time, because we do want to try and get to the stream as close to 7 as possible. We are going to go over because we're not done here. But before anything else, I really want to talk about the artwork from this, because a lot of people were noticing that this looked more hand-drawn. It really worked with the style. So Jennifer, tell us about the challenges and how you figured those out.
So this environment, like, I always want to make the environments look comic book-ish, but this one in particular, I wanted, the card art was so great. I was like, how am I going to make it look as good as the card art? And so one thing we did is we hired someone to make a custom shader for us to get those nice black comic book lines on the geometry. That's Brian Crick. I want to shout out to him.
Another fellow Clevelander. Woo! What up? Cleveland represent.
Yep, and he made a great shader for us, and so this environment, more than the other ones, I actually like did a lot more 3D modeling, and because like the Enclave, I made a texture that was based on the card art, made some adaptations, and built the tubes and the different things, and it was a really interesting experience, because it was challenging to make it in 3D, but still be have that distinct comic book feel, and it's very otherworldly too.
Well, and if the comments are any indication, I think that I think we succeeded. I think you succeeded, and I think Brian succeeded. Thank you, Brian. All right.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, that definitely made a big help.
Cool.
Every
Yeah,
time
I
you
think
posted,
Sorry,
every
go ahead,
time you
Jean-Marc.
posted in our chat with new art, I was always like, "Wow, oh that looks awesome! Like that looks just like the art." And then you post another one, it's like, "Oh man, no, that one looks awesome." And then
Yeah,
you keep
totally.
doing it. I was like, I don't even know how you do it. You do it. It looks fantastic.
Indeed, it does. All right, so folks, it is 7, but we still actually have more music because we have a surprise for you. Jean-Marc came to me and said, "Hey, I've got an idea for Wrath of the Cosmos." So tell me, Jean-Marc, what this idea was. That is one of the big surprises tonight.
Yeah. So as we know, Cargo Warfang has a theme which we listened to before, and because hers was originally so triumphant and then brought down. I was like, I could probably use this same sound set and make a new version of the Sentinels winning theme song, because we've been using the same one since the original release, and I was like, wouldn't it be cool if if you won in the Coliseum, that it actually played like a new remix of the Sentinels Stand Victorious theme.
So that's right, folks. It's time for the Sentinels Stand Victorious Bloodsworn Remix, starting now.
You claim to fight for freedom. You wave that flag as if it means something. This lie you tell yourselves, it sickens me. But I have been watching, and even I am not above learning from my mistakes. You are all weak, but it is in working together that you gain strength. No matter. I am building a team of my own. We will have satisfaction. We will have retribution. We will have vengeance.
What was that? Did you guys hear that? It looked like something like took over the stream for a minute. Did anybody else see that?
What?
That's not the way the Sentinels theme is supposed to be played.
Yeah, I don't know. What was that?
They stole that.
Oh,
I
Baron
think someone
Blade.
hacked our stream.
Yeah, I think Baron
think
Blade
so.
is looking for vengeance and hacked our stream. Yeah, so did you guys see that? So I've actually been working on that trailer for a while now, and I've been so excited to share with everybody.
Like a month
Yeah.
or two.
Hang on, I gotta push this up. I'm sure some people are trying to hit the site, and that page isn't up yet. Sentinelsdigital.com/season2. But it's gonna be up momentarily.
They are already posting about how it's a 404.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. All right, so let's make this public.
Baron Blade hacked the stream.
Oh, Baron Blade, you're so silly. So yeah, folks, that's right. You'll notice if you reload now, hopefully, that there's a bit of a countdown. We'll let you know what that's counting down to a little bit later. But yep, 12 days, 15 hours. There it is. And all will be revealed about Season 2. Welcome, John, to the stream. Hey, John, what's going on?
Hello. I was actually just watching the stream. I never get to do that.
Yeah.
It was really well done. Nice videos
Thank you.
and everything.